What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be looking at Hisuian-Typhlosion for the upcoming Regulation H format, which is again just a few days away. So we've built a whole bunch of different teams throughout the month of August, and one kind of archetype that we haven't really covered is Hyper Offense, and excuse me, the Hisuian-Typhlosion definitely fits within that archetype. So what does it do? So basically, here's the core. You partner this with some kind of Tailwind user. It's either going to be the Whimsicott or it's either going to be the Murkrow, either one. Okay, and the whole premises is that you have to respect the Tailwind Eruption play from this Hisuian-Typhlosion. Okay, and you know, if you were to compare the regular Typhlosion with the Hisuian version, you know, that's also something that you also have to like kind of look at when you're first looking at this. Is regular Typhlosion has base 100 speed. Okay, the Hisuian has 9 less. And on paper, that's not very good, right? Because you always want your Eruption to kind of go first. So the fact that you're a little bit slower kind of makes this look like a better Eruption user. But this has 109 special attack, this has 119 special attack, and this is a ghost type, which is important because this can't get faked out in the beginning, and this one can. So that's also like a huge kind of bonus in that regard. So that makes this a little bit more enticing than the regular Typhlosion. Now, that being said, you know, let's say you partner this with Whimsicott / Murkrow. Okay, can you easily just go Tailwind Eruption willy-nilly and then melt things? Yes, but, you know, a good player will understand, okay, I'm not just going to let him do that and win the game in 2 turns. I have to find a way to mitigate this and stop this because, you know, I can't just let him sweep me so easily, right? And to build the rest of this team, right? If you want to start this is like the beginning part of the team. You have to understand what does well into this kind of idea and what can really put a damper on the Hisuian-Typhlosion plans with the Eruption stuff. Okay, so that being said, before we build the rest of the team, I'm gonna point out some of the best counters, so this way we can re-counter those counters, and then we can have a very solid hyper offensive team. Okay, so let's talk about the counters here. Okay, so I've got 6 Pokemon here. Now, these are not the only 6 that can do well into Hisuian-Typhlosion, but they represent a group of Pokemon that I'm going to be discussing, so therefore, you know, I don't have to list all of them on the screen. So, for example, Incineroar, a straight-up Fire type, okay? That's going to resist the Eruption stuff from Typhlosion, and Incineroar overall does really well because, again, you're also a Dark type, so you can't get, you know, you're not really going to be taking too much damage from Shadow Ball. And then at the same time, you kind of sit in front of all the fire type attacks. So when you're building with Hisuian-Typhlosion, you're going to need something against Incineroar, some strong water or ground type. Particularly something like a Primarina or Blood Moon Ursaluna is going to be really good against something like Incineroar. Hydreigon also, like another dark type, and it's also dragon type as well. So dragons in general are also going to be able to sit in front of the Typhlosion and, you know, resist the fire type attacks in general. And then again, just like Incineroar, you're a dark type, so you're not going to be taking too much damage from the ghost types in general, and they in turn can deal super effective damage back to you unless you Terra your Hisuian-Typhlosion. So you're almost forced to commit the Terra immediately, otherwise this thing just clicks Dark Pulse or it just clicks Snarl, and Typhlosion is just not going to have a good time. Tyranitar, right? The another dark type. Okay, there's no coincidence that dark types are going to be pretty decent into Typhlosion, but these all have like typings that are good into the fire type that Typhlosion has because they're able to resist it. So Tyranitar, especially with the sand and the Assault Vest, Typhlosion does nothing to Tyranitar. And then in turn, it can click the rock move if you Terra Fire, and if you don't Terra at all, then it can always click knockoff into you, right? So Tyranitar, another thing that you have to build for. So again, having the Blood Moon Ursaluna or the Primarina looks really good into all 3 of these, right? These are the 3 common threats, I would say, into Hisuian-Typhlosion. So you got to be aware of that, right? The rock typing from Tyranitar or even Glomora, that's another one. Hisuian Arcanine falls into that category as well. A dragon type, okay, you got to have something for Hydreigons, the Dragonites, the Salamances. They're just all going to sit in front of the fire type attacks. And then something like Incineroar, again, like we mentioned, very popular Pokemon in the format, top 10 usage, top 5 actually. Armarouge, something with Flash Fire. So Armarouge, again, it's kind of like interesting because you are weak to the Shadow Ball, of course. But, you know, the Armarouge does have to commit the Terra in the grand scheme of things to be able to survive the Shadow Ball. But this thing is always paired with Indeedee, so you can't even click Shadow Ball anyway because they just redirect your Shadow Ball, and then the Armarouge can just do whatever it wants into the Typhlosion. And if this has Meteor Beam, you know, the power of Meteor Beam stuff, along with the Expanding Force, then you're just kind of cooked there in that regard. So that's something, of course, that you have to look at in terms of team sheet. But Eruption does nothing into Armarouge. It does have to commit the Terra, but if this is, you know, against the Shadow Ball, but if this is paired with the Indeedee, it doesn't matter anyway. So something else you have to be aware of. And then the Primarina, right? A water type. So if you have a water type, you can just also sit in front of the Typhlosion and take that attack. And Primarina is also really good at that. Very high special defense, base 116. So you can take several of those eruptions, especially if you have good EV investment there. So, and then in turn, you're going to deal super effective damage back with the Hyper Voice, of course, because it is a water type attack. Priority move from the King Gambit, right? So King Gambit, another dark type. But what's really good with King Gambit is it has Sucker Punch. So it'll do really big damage into the Typhlosion. It'll just KO it, actually. And if it's forced to Terra Fire, great. You'll survive the Sucker Punch, but you'll have taken so much damage that the Eruption just really isn't doing that much anyway. So you have to be aware of priority moves. So some anti-priority on your team is going to be important. So something like either Indeedee or a Farigiraf is going to be important. But again, this 6 just represents the group that I've talked about that are really good into the Typhlosion, right? So you kind of see that you can't just click Tailwind Eruption into your opponents, especially if they have these Pokemon. They're going to have ways to go around it. And if they have Terra Fire available to, you know, some of their options. So just imagine something like an Annihilate, right? Which normally wouldn't be so threatening against the Typhlosion per se. But if it has... let me just put the Annihilate. If it has the Terra Water or the Terra Fire, then Eruption is not going to matter. And if it's paired with the Mouse Hold, then you'll deal damage and then you just die to Rage Fist the next turn, right? So, you know, just think of it like that in terms of that. So something, again, you have to peek about into the team sheets to just be aware of what the Pokemon they might have that can do well into the Hisuian-Typhlosion. Now, that being said, let's go into the tournament teams. Let's see what other people have built that have had success with the Typhlosion, and then we'll build our own squad based on the data that we have found from the Lab Mouse website. So let's take a look. All right, so let's look at the Lab Mouse website. Let's look at the data and see what we can pair with our Tailwind user plus Hisuian-Typhlosion. So let's look at this first team here. 92 results, second place in a training Sternier tournament. So pretty interesting name. But anyway, so Whimsicott Typhlosion. This is a Scarf Typhlosion, so that's pretty cool. Not only are you just relying on the Tailwind, you can also forgo the damage and just go even more damage in general. Sometimes you don't even have to bring the Whimsicott. You can pair something else with the Typhlosion, like a Torkoal here. And, you know, more weather means you don't have to waste a move on the sunny day. You can also just go into your Torkoal here and, you know, kind of make them, you know, force them to click something. Because you have double Eruption threat. And if something doesn't melt already with the Typhlosion here, then the Torkoal can also just take care of that simply, right? So this is a cool way to consider it. Add your own Torkoal to make your Typhlosion do more damage. Of course, you're going to have Sunny Day and Whimsicott. Manual Sun is really good against the Pelipper teams that also want to switch in against the Typhlosion and change the weather to rain. So this way Eruption does less damage. Understandable. There's the Blood Moon Ursaluna that we talked about. Again, really good into stuff like Incineroar. Can hit ghost types also, like a Goldango, for example. And then at the same time, you know, also pretty good into stuff like Armarouge or other fire types in general. And then the Farigiraf, the Farigiraf, again, also anti-priority. So this way you can't click something like Aqua Jet into the Typhlosion, something from like Basculegion, or maybe even something like, again, Sucker Punch. Maybe you can't even fake this out, right? So that's also really good to have. And this is essentially the core to me, right? You have a Tailwind user, Typhlosion, Blood Moon Ursaluna, anti-priority, something like either Farigiraf or Indeedee, and then the last 2 slots are up for grabs depending on how you like to play it. Obviously, he's going with Torkoal here, Farigiraf Torkoal, so you can also go to Trick Room mode, Trick Room Eruption, Tailwind Eruption. Either way, this is what he's doing. Then he's got the Palm out here for some reason. Obviously, maybe to bring back something from the dead and then just go from there. I would pick something else, but the Palm out definitely works without a doubt, of course. This one here from Marco Fierro. I remember this. This was like the Pledge stuff. And I've even seen another one with Fire Pledge here on the Typhlosion. Very interesting. But look at this. This is a very interesting team. He's got Murkrow here instead of the Whimsicott. That's okay. It's Specs Typhlosion, so we're going for damage. And then he's got a Haze user in the Murkrow, so he's taking Haze off the Primarina because he wants to do Water Pledge, along with Grass Pledge from the Meowscarada. And look at this. This is a very good Fire Water Grass core with Primarina, Meowscarada, and then Typhlosion. So Meowscarada gives you a nice Dark type into something like Psy Spam, so you can remove the Indeedee almost instantly, and then Typhlosion could potentially click a Shadow Ball into that Armarouge per se, or, you know, force that Terra, make it go Terra Grass, which is also pretty nice. But again, at the end of the day, you know, Flower Trick crit does a ton of damage. Primarina also, Hyper Voice, Moonblast, also really good into the Dragon types that Typhlosion somewhat struggles against because Dragon resists fire. And then the Blood Moon yet again over here. So this is Tailwind Blood Moon. So no Trick Room mode here. This is probably a fast Blood Moon Ursaluna. I would say max speed modest or even max speed timid, depending on how Murkrow decided to do it. And then you have the Archeladon here. No Rain Dancer because we have Manual Sunny Day, but instead we're going with Power Herb Archeladon, which means we can still get off one Electro Shot, and then from there rely on Flash Cannons and potentially Draco Meteors. And again, we're not really afraid of clicking, you know, all these Draco Meteors because we have Haze from our Murkrow to be able to wipe away the special attack drop. So this is a really cool team, right? You can kind of see the double course here. Dragon Fairy Steel, you with Archaludon, Primarina, and then Fire Water Grass with the Typhlosion, Primarina, and Meowscarada. So I like this a lot. You have a couple support options here with the Murkrow, of course, and then the Blood Moon just becomes another sweeper that you could either lead with or bring in the back in the end game. So I like this a lot from Murkrow. Shout outs to him. Really cool team. Okay, King Black's over here. Again, you know, similar idea with the Torkoal. You have the Trick Room mode of Eruption combined with the Tailwind mode of Eruption. Indeedee for the anti-priority stuff. That also has Trick Room. So again, here's your core. Typhlosion, Tailwind user, anti-priority mon. Have a Blood Moon Ursaluna or a regular Ursaluna, either way. And then you can go fast mode here with Lilligant Torkoal stuff. And then Clear Smog Torkoal, again, also very good into the Dondozo matchup, which we also saw in the other team over here from Zemuran, right? They also had Clear Smog there. That's for the Dondozo matchup. So that's pretty cool. And then let's just look at a couple more. This one's like the most popular one because the rental is actually public here. So if you want the rental, feel free to grab it from VGC Pace. Otherwise, ask me and then I'll give it to you. But here's the open team sheet, obviously. So we have the Typhlosion here with the Whimsicott. We have the Blood Moon Ursaluna. And then we have Maushold here. So this is pretty interesting, right? You have Maushold here rather than something like Indeedee or Farigiraf. But Tauros also does relatively well here. You have Close Combat for the Hydreigons and the other Dark types. You have Raging Bull for the Fire types. So Tauros fulfilling its role in helping the Typhlosion do what it needs to do. Then this is the fast mode Blood Moon Ursaluna, again, like we mentioned. And then we have King Gambit over here that can also do a pretty decent job into the Psy Spam matchup, which is something that Typhlosion tends to have trouble against. But if you have something like King Gambit, once you remove the Indeedee, then you can actually get to the Armarouge. And then from there, you know, do what it needs to do, especially with the Assault Vest there. You can take a lot of those special attacks. So TKL, well done there. And again, if you want the spreads here, if you want the rental, feel free to ask. We have it for you. Okay, moving on with the other teams here. You could even, this one's interesting. You could also do like a Dragapult stuff here, right? Double Ghost idea with Whimsicott, Blood Moon, and Indeedee here. So there's the core like we mentioned. You could also do like a fast mode with Dragapult here. So having your own dragon is pretty good. And this one, how about, you know, just straight up Dragonite stuff with Glimmora. So we've always talked about, you know, Tailwind Glimmora teams are very, very strong. Usually we would have this with Talonflame and Glimmora here, with, you know, with Goldengo. But here we also have Palmot again with the Dragonite Typhlosion here. So, you know, again, another kind of way of playing it, but still more or less the same kind of course that we've seen already. Where you have some anti-priority mon, and then even potentially a dragon type, or you know, just to be able to match up well into mirrors. This one here also uses you know, some interesting options here. Again, you still have a Fire Water Grass core with Typhlosion, Primarina, and Rillaboom. Then you have Whimsicott giving you the Tailwind, a bulky Follow Me user with the Electabuzz. I don't know if we actually need Electabuzz on this team, but hey, it makes sense. You have an Intimidate user here with Overquill, which is also very useful in a lot of matchups because, again, it also gets Haze, which some people always forget it gets. But Haze is really good on this Overquill. Again, that's for your Dondozo matchup especially. And you get a Haze use it with Intimidate. Not too many Pokemon can do that, but Overcool hand. So this is really cool. And then, of course, the Toxic stuff, you know, just for melting things over time. Then after that, you can kind of see some other interesting ideas. I did see one with oh yeah, this one, right, with 6-2. So you can always do something like Hydreigon with Typhlosion at the same time. Again, you know, Hydreigon, you know, with this crit stuff with the scope lens, can just take stuff out immediately that threaten the Typhlosion. And then from there, you have stuff like Gyarados and Blood Moon Ursaluna that can help manage different matchups. Again, Gyarados really good against fire types, of course. And then the Dragon Cheer stuff with Hydreigon just absolutely goes bonkers if you're able to just get this off here. So I thought this was also pretty interesting. But we've seen the core ideas. We've seen what this stuff can do. I also want to just take a look at this one team over here because, again, another Haze user in Milotic combined with something like, again, with the Typhlosion, you can get this Fire, Water, Grass core going here. And then the Salamence with the Dragon typing gives you a Dragon Fairy Steel idea going here as well. So look at this, Anti-Priority Mon with the Farigiraf, Haze user in Milotic, Whimsicott Tailwind stuff, King Gambit rounding out the back end and your Trick Room matchups with Farigiraf, and then of course Salamence giving you not Intimidate support actually, it's actually a Moxie Salamence doing tons of damage here, so that's also pretty interesting. I like this a lot. This is a cool Milotic set. I think Milotic is a little bit underutilized and underrated, especially this set right here. Scald, Haze is really good. And then even like Life Dew and situational needs to be able to recover stuff over time, I think is also really good. But again, we've already established the kind of core we want to build. So let's look at that and let's go back into the team builder and let's go into building this Typhlosion team. So I'm going to build two variants of this Typhlosion team. I'm going to build one that uses Whimsicott and I'm going to build another one that uses Murkrow because unlike Whimsicott, Murkrow gets Haze, which means you don't have to use your Primarina for Haze, which means you can go with another move, which is kind of what like Marco did. And we'll kind of bring back that core a little bit. We just won't use the Pledge stuff, even though Pledge is a little bit underrated, this kind of regulation. But I still like to play without it. So we'll still bring back Primarina, okay? And we will also bring back, you know, the essence of that team. Blood Moon Ursaluna also is quite strong here. You know, I want to also have this in the end game potentially. Like, you don't always have to just rely on Typhlosion. You could even just lead Whimsicott, Ursaluna, and just go bonkers with Hyper Voice and Blood Moon stuff. And again, I've clicked Hyper Beam, you know, for so many times. So many times I've typed Hyper Beam instead of Hyper Voice. But anyway, so you could do stuff like this and then bring back the Meowscarada over here for your Dark type. And then you still have this Fire, Water, Grass core, which is really strong with Primarina, Meowscarada, and the Typhlosion. Because we don't have the Murkrow, this Primarina will have the Haze, of course. And then some anti-priority mon, either the Indeedee or something like the Farigiraf. I'm going to go Farigiraf. I like Farigiraf, especially when paired with Blood Moon. I think this team makes a lot of sense for what it's supposed to do. So you have Eruption stuff. You can stop priority Sucker Punches and Aqua Jets into Typhlosion with something like Farigiraf. You can stop Fake Out, especially, you know, when you have the Terra Fire, which things can fake out into you now. You have Primarina for fire types and dragon types that are good into the Typhlosion matchup. And then at the same time, Meowscarada also does pretty decently into the Size Spam stuff at the end of the day. So I like the 6. And then we'll almost keep the same 6. The only difference here is we'll have Murkrow here and we'll change the Primarina set slightly. But in essence, the team still plays more or less the same depending on the setup that you want to do with it. Okay, and just for variants, you know, I'll do, you know, charcoal versus choice specs, so this way you can kind of pick and choose which kind of Typhlosion you want to be able to use depending on how you like to play it. But this one I will use charcoal, and then the other one I will use choice specs. But I think both are very good. There is no right or wrong answer, just pros and cons. One gets protect, one you don't get locked in. The other one, of course, more damage. So it just really depends on what you value as a Typhlosion player. You're going to have to just, you know, play it out and see what you feel. But I will give you both. So Typhlosion, very simply here, we're going to go Tailwind, you know, Heat Wave and Eruption, of course. Then your Shadow Ball, your single target move. I like Flamethrower. Okay, if you don't like Flamethrower, you want a little bit more damage, you can go Overheat here. So really just depends on you. You got to have at least one single target fire move. So this way, Guard doesn't just completely wall you a little bit. So Flamethrower, you know, of course, the Pelipper matchup. I think Flamethrower is pretty solid with Charcoal here, so you can definitely consider that. And you know, you don't get to miss which is also what Heat Wave can do sometimes. So just keep that in mind, but I will keep everything else the same. Whimsicott here, you could do Sash on this, but the very common set here is Tailwind, Moonblast, Sunny Day, and of course Encore. You can lock things into Fake Out. You can lock things, just clicking Trick Room over and over. You can lock things into Protect. So pretty cool. And then Covert Cloak, of course, just makes it so that you can't get, faked out or you don't get any of those speed drops from Icy Wind. I'll also go Terra Dark here so you don't get taunted. And then the Blood Moon here, we'll go Life Orb. Obviously, more damage is good. Earth Power and then Protect over here. We'll go Terra Normal here. Then the Primarina, we'll go Terra Grass as always. We'll go standard Primarina set with the Throat Spray, with the Moonblast, the Hyper Voice. No Hyper Beam. Okay, and then Protect. The Meowscarada, of course, we'll go Focus. I like Focus Sash. If you like Choice Band, you can definitely do Choice Band Meowscarada. I like Sash. Now, you can go Protean here. I think Protean is pretty good, and you can take advantage with this set that we're going to give you. It's going to have, of course, Flower Trick. It's going to have Knockoff, and it's also going to have U-Turn. And that's the benefit here, in terms of Protean. You have to read the ability to understand it, of course. You only get it once per switch in. That's fine. Listen, I can U-turn out and, click another move and then basically reset my Protean, which is really cool when you think about it. So if you want to do this, definitely consider U-turn. Otherwise, you can just go and, just do more damage with your grass type attack, when you're down to your Sash, right? But I like U-turn in this sense. So if you like U-turn and you still want more damage, you can definitely do Band at the same time. So, but I like Sash and Meowscarada with Protect. I think it's quite good. All right, Farigiraf here. Again, I like Safety Goggles here. Amoonguss is annoying. I like, of course, the Armor Tail ability. I like Terrifier. Sometimes you gotta sit in front of the Goldango and, soak that in. And it's also pretty good against Trick Room, Torkoal stuff where they also want to click Eruption. Even the Mirror against Typhlosion, you gotta go Terrifier. So I kind of like this. And then just simple Psychic Noise, stop healing stuff, Hyper Voice, spam your stab move, and then Helping Hand, do more damage with Eruption, and then Trick Room, of course, against potential Tailwind Mirror matchups at the end of the day. So this is it. This is the team. And it's pretty easy to play, right? This is our Tail Room Hyper Offense, kind of the idea, right? It's almost a little bit balanced, but you can kind of see how the team is supposed to play at the end of the day. Like, yes, you have to respect the Eruption stuff from the Typhlosion, but we have the answers to the stuff that you're going to bring to respect it. So I think we've done a good job here. Now, in terms of EV strats, I think a lot of this is going to be relatively straightforward. The Whimsicott will be the one that gets interesting, but I'll show you that in a second. But Typhlosion here, I just want to go Timid here with max speed, max special attack. If you want Modest, sometimes it gets a little bit tricky if you want to do Modest because now you're slower than Choice Specs, Timid, Goldango, and I think that's a problem. So I think just outspeeding that is always going to be a plus. You're going to get the damage anyway from the Charcoal, the Helping Hands, the Sunny Days, the Terrifiers. I think we're fine in terms of our damage output. So I think having speed on the Typhlosion is going to be important. Whimsicott, couple things you can do here, and I'll show you both ways. You can just go max speed here and almost max HP. And then, just put 4s in the rest of the way. Obviously, because, you're a Covert Cloak, you want to have some bulk on you. But if you want to play this even more bulkier but slower, you can do something like this, where you just go to about 170 here. And this is going to outspeed base 100s. This is going to outspeed stuff like Garchomp at the end of the day. And then after this, you can keep all this HP, but then you can add a little bit more in your special attack stat. So this way you can do a little bit more damage. Otherwise, you can make it extremely bulky and just do stuff like this, where you can add more into your defense and your special defense, and then, just leave 1 point in the special attack and then just call it a day simply like that. You can also do a little bit more investment in your speed and outspeed something like Mousehold, which again is an important speed tier. So I think 180 is that mark. Yes, it is. Of course, it hits 179. And then just dump the rest here into special attack because, it's just leftover EVs at this point. So if you want, yes. But look how close we are to, max speed. At the, there's going to be speed creepers at the same time. So at that point, you might as well just go max speed, right? So this way, in the Tailwind, in the Whimsicott mirror, you can figure out who's faster and that's going to be good information in a best of 3, right? So I'll leave it like that. Blood Moon here, we have the Tailwind stuff. I just like Timid Blood Moon. Again, just nuking things as fast as you can is going to be huge here. And we'll just leave it like this. In fact, we'll even go to 189 here for the Life Orb optimization, which we always love to do. Primarina here, I'll use the same Primarina set in terms of our damage calc that we showed, in our EV spread video, as well as, previous teams that we've used Primarina before. Let's go to the second bump here in the special attack stat. Let's go to 108 investments. And once again, I get to say this now with a little bit of pride. If you want to get better at competitive Pokemon and you're trying to understand how we do EV spreads on this channel, make sure you check out our video on how to create optimal EV spreads. Or at the same time, you can comment in the video below asking what are EV bumps, and I will show you and I will reply to you just exactly what these things are. And this way you can understand what they are as well, and then get better at creating EV spreads for your own Pokemon. But I'm going to go second bump here for the Primarina. And then after that, the damage calc that I always like to go to is Survive Rillaboom Grassy Terrain. I'm sorry, Grassy Glide. And this is that investment over here. After that, I just go to about 60 here, which is enough to outspeed max speed Adamant Dondozo. But I go a little bit more further to speed creep that, because again, under Tailwind, this will outspeed Maushold, which is always pretty nice when you can do that. And then after that, this is just leftover EVs. I just dumped the rest in special defense because that's just what I have left over. All right, so this is our optimized Primarina spread. And again, once again, comment below asking what are EV bumps if you don't know what they are. I will reply to you. Otherwise, watch our video a few videos back, how to create optimal EV spreads. I give you the template on how to make optimal spreads, so this way you can stop doing the 252 stuff like this. All right, Meowscarada. Speaking of 252, this is another one that we're going to go 252. Ironically enough, again, it is a focus Sashmon, so I can get away with this. And then the Farigiraf here, I just go Relax Nature here, hitting the benchmark 0 speed here. Let's go. What was it? 156. Let's go second bump here, and then let's go 224 investment. 224 stat is what I meant. So this way, this is optimal for the Rillaboom Grassy Terrain recovery. And then the rest just goes into special defense over here. Right? So that's it. Right? Very general spreads. And usually, that's what they are if you're trying to play hyper offense, stuff like this. They're very basic. But that's okay. Because, again, you still have the 6 Mons doing what they need to do. And, for different matchups, some Mons will come, and of course, some Mons will stay behind. All right, so we'll test this team out, and then we'll show you the Murkrow version, but let's see how this team does. All right, so this is a very interesting Pelipper Archeladon team. He's got the Farigiraf and Instant. That's pretty standard, I would say. Then he's got Araquanid here. So he's got the Trick Room Water mode with the Farigiraf. That's understandable. Then he's got Chestnut here. Another underrated Pokemon. I don't think it belongs here, but at the end of the day, I kind of understand the Chestnut idea. But this is a matchup where, like, you just leave the Typhlosion health. It doesn't really do much here. There's Rain, there's Insane, there's Wide Guard here. Yeah, I'm sure he's got Wide Guard with the Araquanid, so it's kind of tough for the Typhlosion, but it's not so tough for something like Blood Moon Ursaluna and Primarina, and that's kind of where we're going to rely on this, because again, if he wants to bring the Pelipper, Primarina is going to do a little bit more damage. You've got Moonblast into the Chestnut, you've got Moonblast into the Archeladon potentially, and then Blood Moon Ursaluna can also just clean up everything else that he has. So we're going to rely on those two and leave the Typhlosion home here, which means we have good flexibility on the squad. So here's the Whimsicott, and I'm going to go Primarina here. So it gives me the rain, which is nice. I'm going to go Farigiraf here, just because I don't want to lose to Hurricane from the Pelipper there, which is important. Hyper Voice does a lot of damage, and that means everything's going to die next turn. But he goes Trick Room here, so that's okay. But I'm just going to go Helping Hand and try and wipe these out. Now, he has Imprison, which is good for him, bad for me, because now he seals my Hyper Voice, so I can't do that. He misses the Hydro Pump, which is why Weather Ball is so much better. So mistake on our opponent for using that over Weather Ball. But now we just remove the Pelipper altogether. And now he has no more Rain after 2 more turns. So here's the Araquanid. I kind of wanted to see how much damage it would do, so I didn't protect here, and he actually just removes me, right? Rain, Liquidation, the ability. I guess it makes a lot of sense. And, I have weaker physical bulk there, so He takes out 2 of my Mons. So now I have to go with Blood Moon and the Whimsicott here. I just protect here because, again, he's faster than my Ursaluna. I go Tailwind just to make sure I'm faster than the Archeladon later on. I don't know what kind of spread he has, but I know he's got it in the back. So, yeah, after this, now we can just go Terra Normal here. He goes Wide Guard here. I think that's a mistake because he's already imprisoning my Hyper Voice. So, of course, I'm going to target the Farigiraf there so I can click Hyper Voice eventually. But I go Sunny Day, so this way I don't have to take as much damage from Liquidation. But I can just Encore him now that he clicked Wide Guard again and just remove the Archeladon because I know I'm faster. And now he's just locked into Wide Guard. See, this is why Encore Whimsicott in the right scenario is really good. And now from here, Blood Moon just pretty much cleans up here by just clicking the move that it always knows how to click, and that is Blood Moon, and that's it. So, interesting team, but again, the Primarina and Blood Moon Ursaluna are more than enough in games like this. Sometimes you just have to leave the Typhlosion home, but sometimes you can bring it depending on the type of rain team that he has. Okay, so this one is also pretty standard. So this one, Typhlosion can do decently because he's got Goldango and Amoonguss. So fire damage is going to be a little bit more appreciated, and at the same time, we can hit the Goldango and the Basculegion with the Ghost type move if it comes down to it, right? So there is good value here. Now, let's see how he respects it. So he goes Basculegion, and he goes the Murkrow here. He's got a Tailwind with this thing. So he actually leads Basculegion. Usually this thing comes in the endgame as a cleaner, but he leads with it. So bad spot for me, but I can still reposition. Let's go Meowscarada here. And he goes for Quash, very interestingly enough. There's the flip turn. He's going to go into his Pelipper, looks like. Yep, it is. So he's got the 2 birds out, which is fine. I don't want to get tailwinded there. Hurricane. So I'm going to just protect here a little bit. And that's exactly what he did. I wanted to at least try and get my Tailwind up first. So he wipes out my Whimsicott, but he also hurts himself in the progress. So there goes his bird. So both Tailwind users down. I have Farigiraf here and then Basculegion, of course. He can't click Aqua Jet later on, so that's good for me. He goes Terra Water Basculegion. Very brave, of course, in front of a Meowscarada Flower Trick. But he does live. Wave Crash absolutely annihilates my Farigiraf, but it takes himself out in the process. Now it's Goldango and Pelipper versus Typhlosion here. It's my last turn of Tailwind, obviously. I think I kind of misplayed this a little bit. Of course, I'm going for Shadow Ball here, but I targeted the Pelipper instead. I probably should have just hit the Goldango at the end of the day, because this was a Specs Goldango. This does so much damage. Okay, and thankfully I do outspeed it here, because if I was modest and if he was timid, then I would have just lost. So, that's the reasoning for timid there. But I feel like I should have just always targeted the Goldango there, and then just live with the result at the end of the day. But we're able to pull this out because our Typhlosion lived on a sliver of health there. Okay, this is like the Dragapult Farigiraf stuff, and he's got the Fake Out Brothers here. He's got Pelipper, but there's a weird Pokemon there, and that is Blaziken. I don't know why he has that there. Could have been something better, like even Archeladon, right? But he has the Blaziken there. But again, it's okay. He has it for a reason. Speed boosts can be threatening, but Typhlosion looks pretty good here. He does have Dragapult Farigiraf. That's good. I want to just protect first and deal some chip damage with the Whimsicott first. Just in case if he does something like this, right, where he wants to just one-shot my Typhlosion there. But interesting, he went for that because I could have just Tailwinded and Shadow Balled him. But obviously, he could have also switched out into Instant, which is I thought he might do. There's the Blaziken, and now Typhlosion can kind of go bonkers here. But here's the difference between Specs and not Specs. So Farigiraf still hangs on here, and of course clicks Hyper Voice. All right, and things melt here, but that's okay. So I know he's going to protect the Blaziken. That's, of course, without a doubt. I did this just in case he wanted to swap into Dragapult here. But, Hyper Voice always just picks up everything no matter what. So it was always safe to do that no matter what. Because Hyper Voice would have even picked up the Blaziken anyway. So here comes Rillaboom here. Now I go into the Farigiraf here just in case he wants to do Fake Out stuff. But Heat Wave just removes them immediately. He didn't even go for the Fake Out. So that was good for me. And now it's just the Dragapult left against R3 Pokemon. And it's pretty much over here because now I can just do Helping Hand and Shadow Ball the Dragapult. And that's it. This was an absolute Typhlosion annihilation. He did not have any kind of Pelipper whatsoever. And I think you need to bring both the Pelipper and the Dragapult when we have Typhlosion a Typhlosion team like this. Alright, this one is as standard as it gets. This is Mouse Ape Sinistra with Pelipper Archeladon. There's the Incineroar there. Sometimes you'll see Hydreigon in that slot. Either way, pretty standard. I still like Primarina into, Pelipper Archeladon teams with the Blood Moon in the back potentially. But here's Annihilate Mousehold here. So, obviously, I just want to remove the Mousehold here. So I kind of want to try and just get my special attack damage up first. There is a bulk up, so I see that he's faster than my Primarina. So, Hyper Voice hits the Mousehold very hard. Doesn't KO it, unfortunately, but now I have Whimsicott that can KO it. He does protect, but again, my Primarina is still sitting here. He doesn't even go for the Primarina. He just goes greedy here, and he just loses the Annihilate. But very poorly played Annihilate what Mousehold did there, I would say. And it's actually over from here because the Mousehold is taking so much chip damage. There's no Tailwind coming out from him yet. There is the Hurricane there, but again, doesn't really help him because my Primarina is already +1 and is doing so much damage already. I have the Blood Moon out here. There's the Sinistra. He doesn't even bring the Archeladon, which I think is a mistake. Now it's definitely over, right? I think if you're going to bring the Pelipper, you got to bring Archeladon to match up like this. Now we just nuke the Sinistra, and that's pretty much it. Right? Just click Moonblast here, and that's it. Turn 4 easy. You don't need Typhlosion if you've got Primarina and Blood Moon. Okay, so now we'll show you the Murkrow version. By the way, I do want to make a little correction here. I forgot to actually show you Protect here. In the midst of my explanation, I totally forgot that, we actually did forgo that Flamethrower move, and we went with Protect here. But you will see it over here because we're going to go Choice Specs instead. So if you like this variant, you could definitely do that. But for the Murkrow, you just want to go stuff like this with Tailwind, and of course Haze, to wipe away debuffs from Dondozo and other setup Pokemon like Annihilate for sure. Sunny Day, again, get the sun out for your Typhlosion, and then at the end of the day, you have the option for Foul Play, and you also have the option for Brave Bird. I think both are good. Depends on how you want to play your Murkrow, but I went with Brave Bird. It's decent chip damage. So, if you want Foul Play, I think Foul Play is also pretty strong. Here we'll go Choice Specs with the Flamethrower rather than the Charcoal with Protect. So you get more damage, but obviously you're locked into a move and you don't get to click Protect. So just keep that in mind. Then the Primarina, we don't have to go Haze here. Now instead we can get a third move here. You can also go with Energy Ball, Terra Grass here. I think this is pretty good against other Primarinas, for example. But if we already have Grass coverage here, let's go Ice Beam here. I think Ice Beam could be quite good against other flying types, for example, or even some other dragon types per se that are weak to ice, something like Dragonite or Salamence, or even something like a Rillaboom for that matter. You can click a super effective ice move against them. +1 Ice Beam does hurt, so I think we can go with that in terms of coverage. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Again, just changing this to Choice Specs, adding Ice Beam over here, and then of course this is a Murkrow rather than a Whimsicott, but more or less we kept a lot of the core of the team the same. So let me just put this on the screen here, but that's pretty much it. So either way, whichever team you want to use, whether it's the Whimsicott or the Murkrow, I think they're both going to be good. But let's test out the Murkrow real quick and let's see how much we can do with this. So something like this is an example of if you're not prepared for meta stuff, then you just instantly lose to the standard opening that you can do with your team, which is basically Tailwind Eruption. Look at his team here. He's got the Steely Spirit stuff with the Rev Room. I understand that. He's got Rillaboom there, but nothing here besides maybe a Terrafire, maybe Water Annihilate can really do anything against a Typhlosion here. He does have a Skeledirge there, so there's that. But at the end of the day, we're faster, and we can always do, Shadow Ball into that if we have to. So this entire team is very much weak to Typhlosion, and that's really what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to go Meowscarada Typhlosion now. I don't need the Tailwind because I'm faster than everything he's got. So look at this pin here. He goes into Persiker. Why he does this, I couldn't really tell you. But again, we just knock off the Farigiraf here and, does a tons of amount of damage. Then we just click Eruption. Everything melts. That's 2 Pokemon down. He's got the Rev Room in the back later. And he's got Rillaboom. All the more reason. And again, if he wants to click Fake Out now, he can't. But look, we've got Farigiraf here. We can stop that instantly. That's exactly what he did go for. He didn't even Terra, which means Eruption just pretty much wins the game here. Thanks to our anti-priority move switch in, which is really nice. Okay, we finally get a bit of a mirror matchup here. He's got his own Whimsicott, Typhlosion there. He's got Toxtricity, Lucario, Rillaboom, and then the male Indeedee. Why he has any of these Pokemon, I have no idea. But I do understand the expanding force shenanigans. I don't think you want conflicting terrain, and I don't know what Toxtricity is supposed to do here. Maybe it's some kind of boom burst idea, with the Typhlosion, I guess. But, that's not really consistent in my opinion. So here's Indeedee Toxtricity. I'm going to go Murkrow here, and I'm going to go Blood Moon Ursaluna just in case. If he wanted to lead his own Typhlosion here. Toxtricity comes out, so we forced the Terra Grass. I probably should have just clicked Blood Moon anyway. But he went for Overdrive, thinking maybe I would Terra Normal, but I didn't. And that's good for me. But he does do a Hyper Voice there with the Indeedee. Does a lot of damage, but not enough to remove me. So Hyper Voice here does a lot. I probably should have Terra'd here, but this is still fine. Because Primarina looks pretty good here. We removed the Toxtricity at least. The Indeedee does get to click Trick Room, which is not so great, but the Rillaboom comes out. I'm going to go Terra Grass here. I'm going to click Protect, and I'm still going to click Hyper Voice because I have a +1 boost. I want to at least remove the Indeedee here. Wood Hammer does do a lot, but again, we have a bulky Primarina spread, and that's really what saves us this game, is just having a really bulky physical Primarina investments. Able to survive that Wood Hammer. Here's the Typhlosion. That's okay. I'm going to go Farigiraf here. I'm going to protect the Primarina because I know Trick Room was up. And I thank him for setting the Trick Room for me. But there's the Flamethrower from his Typhlosion, but it doesn't do the job. And now this game is over because the Tailwind is gone from my end. My Primarina is going to outspeed everything here because I'm in Trick Room now, which is what he set for me. And now we get to click +1 Hyper Voice with the Helping Hand, and that's pretty much it. So again, Primarina, again, looking really good on this kind of Typhlosion team. Alright, so he's got the other Typhlosion here with Whimsicott. So this looks pretty interesting. But at the end of the day, we've got Primarina, which goes absolutely bonkers into everything he's got here. So I have no problem being trapped with my Primarina. So he's going to go Gothitelle Indeedee. I'm going to go Meowscarada, and I'm going to go Murkrow first. We'll keep the Primarina later in the back. And, he goes Protect. Good play there. Because I was clicking Knockoff there. I probably should have just did that into the Indeedee, but we don't get to remove the Gothitelle. So he goes Trick Room there. That's still okay. He goes Gallade here, but I don't quite understand that anyway, because that's the slot we want to remove. So he just loses the Gallade for free because we click Brave Bird there. And now we also click the Knockoff here into the Indeedee. Does a lot of damage, of course. Here's Farigiraf. He goes Terra Fairy. That's still fine. Because all we have to do is just protect and let him kill the Murkrow here, get something else in. So there's the Hyper Voice. So goodbye, Murkrow. That's good because now we can bring something else in that can actually do some damage, which is that Primarina. So I'm going to preserve and just give him the Typhlosion if he wants it. But again, he clicks Hyper Voice, which is kind of why I did display, so this way Typhlosion comes in for free. And again, just one more turn of Trick Room. And he goes into Gothitelle here. Not a huge deal. I'm just going to protect Primarina first. He goes Dazzling Gleam here. Gothitelle not really doing much damage here. I knew we would be fine. But yes, Expanding Force. So very interesting Gothitelle set, but not enough. So Typhlosion picks up the KO there. And now, of course, Primarina just does whatever it wants. But, of course, Typhlosion just gets to outspeed everything here and just goes for the kill. Alright, so that's it. So here are the two teams once again. This one is the Whimsicott version, and this one is the Murkrow version with Specs Typhlosion rather than Charcoal. Primarina has Ice Beam here versus Haze over here because we have no Haze Tailwind setter, which is what Murkrow can give us. But in this end, we have it on the Primarina because, again, Whimsicott giving us Encore pressure at the end of the day. And, that's all we needed to do. Alright, so Blood Moon Farigiraf stuff, we've known what that combination can do. It's very strong in Regulation H. But again, you've seen how the team works. You don't always have to bring the Typhlosion. Okay? If it doesn't look good, leave it home. Bring the other stuff. Bring the Primarina, bring the Blood Moon, and support it there with either Whimsicott or something like Farigiraf. And then from there, bring the Meowscarada in certain matchups. But Meowscarada is pretty good in a lot of different matchups. So I just wanted to make that note, of course. But anyway, give these teams a go. Let us know how you do. Let us know what you think of Hisuian-Typhlosion. And again, if you're interested in coaching and you're trying to team build yourself and you need a little bit of help, Make sure you sign up for Tier 3 on the channel. Tier 3 sub gets you a one-on-one Discord call with me where we can build the team from scratch. If you need it for ladder, if you need it for locals, if you need it for the upcoming Baltimore regionals, feel free to sign up. And this way we can get you prepared with the team that is up to date with the meta, and hopefully it is to your liking, of course. All right, but that's going to be it for now, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out and have a good one.